Welcome. I'll just give it a minute to let everybody enter the webinar before we get started. Hello, everybody. If you've just joined, I'm just giving it a few more seconds to let more people enter. Still got some people coming in. Okay, I think it's starting to slow, the number of people coming in, so we can get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Hannah Foraker. I'm the Director for Music Education at Arts Council England. I'm sat today in my home office in East Yorkshire. I'm a white lady with glasses, red hair, and I'm wearing a green top today. Before we begin, I've just got some brief housekeeping. We are joined today by our British Sign Language interpreters, Megan and Naomi. So we do recommend pinning the BSL interpreters to your screen if you need them. Live captioning is also available with thanks to Elaine. And to access the live captions, please click on the CC button that you'll see at the top or the bottom of your screen. You'll see that your camera and your microphone are currently turned off while we begin the session. But we do want today's session to provide an opportunity for discussion and for questions, so we will invite you to get involved. If you'd like to share your thoughts or ask a question, please use the Q&A box. We'll open it at about 12:30, and we've got a behind-the-scenes team that are going to respond to as many of your queries in the Q&A box as they can. And we'll also try to answer some of the more common questions or comments live too. We may invite you to turn on your microphone to ask your question. If you'd prefer not to speak in person, you can also ask your question anonymously. Polite reminder to please be respectful in all of your communications today. We are recording the event and we'll share this with you via email afterwards. If you would prefer that your question or voice isn't published externally, please just let us know in the Q&A box. Today, I'm going to share some brief headlines on the new Hub portfolio and some insights from the applications. Then my colleagues Sam Martin and Maria Turley will talk us through the funding agreement negotiation period and the transition to the new programme. But for now, I'm pleased to introduce Richard and Stefano, who are going to each provide an introduction. Richard.
Hello, everyone. I'm Richard Russell. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Arts Council England. I'm a white male in his 50s, and I've got shaved hair, and I'm wearing glasses and a blue shirt, and I'm sitting in my home office in Brighton today.
Thank you. And Stefano.
Hi, I'm Stefano Pozzi. I'm the Assistant Director at the Department for Education, responsible for music, arts, humanity and humanities education in schools policy. I'm a white male in my late 50s with greying hair, wearing my penny specs today and a navy blue shirt, and I'm in my home office in Cambridge.
Thank you very much. Richard, over to you.
Thank you, Hannah, and I'm delighted to join you today and that we've all been able to meet on the webinar today. I'd like to formally welcome you all to the new Music Hub programme. Thank you so much for applying or being part of an application to join a Music Hub. I know it's been a lot of work for you to develop your partnership, prepare your applications, and in many cases navigate the governance routes of multiple organisations or local authorities. The Arts Council and the Department for Education recognise this and thank you for your dedication and commitment. We really look forward to working with you, whether that's as a hub lead organisation or as a consortium member or key partner. The Music Hub programme is incredibly important to the Arts Council. Supporting every child and young person to be creative and to participate and progress in their creative lives is a key part of our strategy, Let's Create, and hubs make an important contribution to this. We want to ensure that we support you to achieve your ambitions and help you to meet the needs and interests of all the young people that you serve. We can do this by supporting your partnerships to be as broad and diverse as possible, to build links to other strategic cultural activity happening in your area, commission additional support that you might need or help you to access funding. We've been really pleased to see the breadth of partnerships in the applications, and Hannah will share more on this later. So many of our national portfolio organisations and projects that we fund through our National Lottery funding are partners in your applications. Organisations like the Royal Opera House, Open Up Music and Mishmash Productions. We're keen to build even more connections to the projects that we run that are relevant to you, such as the venues receiving funding via the Grassroots Music Fund, like the work our South East team has been doing with Norfolk and Cambridgeshire hubs and the Music Venues Trust. Your relationship manager can help make connections, or if you're involved in something that you think could benefit from our engagement, please let us know. Our focus on place continues, and Music Hubs are one of the largest place-based programmes. We have relationships with every local authority and combined authority at the highest level, and will advocate for hubs and the important work that you will be leading. We know many hubs have been part of work that the Arts Council is doing in places across the country already, whether that's as a lead or a partner in a local cultural education partnership, a creative people and places programme, or priority place activity. Again, we want to help you connect to this work. For example, Lincolnshire Music Hub is working in our priority places of East Lindsey and Boston with additional support from Arts Council England. We also want to understand what other support you need as we continue to invest in work like Youth Music's idea framework, which we commissioned to help music work be more inclusive, diverse, equitable, and accessible. And Music Mark's activity as an investment principle support organisation that supports you and the rest of the music education sector to be more ambitious, dynamic, inclusive, and environmentally sustainable. We know that we already have broader funding relationships with many of you that go beyond hub funding. National Lottery project grants has previously supported many of you, or projects that support you, like the Tri-Boroughs grant to support its successful Music Makes Me project, and Conductive Music's latest project with 20 music hubs. We were also delighted to welcome Newham Music to our national portfolio last year. We know that financial pressures are being felt across our sector and families. Competition for our funds is very high, but we've committed to continue funding youth music at nearly £10 million per year, and we're also investing in arts fundraising and philanthropy to provide training and support to grow a skilled fundraising workforce. We're really pleased to continue as the fund holder for this programme on behalf of the DFE. This September, it will be 12 years since we took up our role, and we thought it was important that we took time to reflect and think about how we could better meet your needs, our new Music Hub portfolio. As most of you will know, we've been working with an organisation called Public Digital to review how we deliver our fund holder role. Some of you have spoken to consultants at Public Digital, and I thank you very much for giving up your time to do this. They've also been talking to other stakeholders like the Department for Education and Music Mark, as well as colleagues at the Arts Council involved in the programme. We've heard that hubs need time and space to deliver the new National Plan for Music Education and to embed the new structure. That reporting needs to be relevant and focused on outcomes and impact, and that your relationship managers need to provide the support and challenge that you need to realise your potential. We're thinking hard about how we can continue to adapt to ensure we can meet yours and the DFE's needs. One of the first things we've done is to stagger the requirements in the first year of funding, and we're going to talk briefly through funding agreements later on in this session. We want to work collaboratively with you to ensure you are shaping outcomes, processes and systems with us, and we're working hard on how we simplify and focus on what's most important. We're talking to the DFE about the learning and feedback we're receiving through our work with Public Digital, and we'll update you when we can on how we're taking action and how we'd like to work with you. I'm really pleased that Stefano from the DFE could be here with us today, and I'm now going to hand over to him to say a few words.
Thank you, Richard, and hello all. The National Plan for Music Education, published nearly 2 years ago now, placed music hubs at the centre of music education. I just want to say a little bit about that. With hub partnerships that would provide support to schools and enable children and young people both in and out of school, we're really mindful of that, in and out of school, to learn and progress their musical interests and really address the big questions that were raised in the consultation we had in 2020 around inclusion. And I'm delighted that I'll be able to be here today with all of you, leaders of our new network of music hubs. And my team and I have worked closely with the Arts Council, as you all know, and we regularly update our Minister for Schools, Minister Hines, Damien Hines MP, and he's also really pleased with where we've got to, and obviously culminating in the announcement at the beginning of the month on the 7th. The National Plan Monitoring Board, chaired by Veronica Wadley, Baroness Fleet, has met 4 times now and have provided really useful feedback and challenge on delivery of the plan, including the Music Hubs investment programme. And we'll also very soon be announcing more details on the £2 million Music Progression Fund and updating you all on the Music Hubs independence evaluation that was set out in the original application guidance in June last year. We're also considering what more we can do to promote the importance of music development plans among school leaders. We estimate that around 3/4 of schools have music development plans. We want to push on making sure they all have one and that they can reach out to you all to support them in that when you commence in September, and for those of you who are part of the existing programme, to do so now. On the additional 25 million for instruments and musical equipment, the department is developing a supplier framework, and there'll be a tender for suppliers that will open very soon. We'll be promoting to you via the Arts Council, so please do strongly encourage your instruments, technology or equipment suppliers to apply to be part of the framework to ensure that it will meet all of your needs. And of course, some of you may want to sell instruments yourselves. There is scope to become a seller of instruments. You'll have used instruments that you may want to sell, so you yourselves can be part of that framework too. We officials, like my colleagues at the Arts Council, also appreciate, as Richard was saying, all the work that's been undertaken by you all for the investment programme. We're really mindful that this creates uncertainty, and I want to just give my personal thanks for all the work you've done to date, and indeed the work in the coming months to get us to September, to the September start. I just wanted to sort of finally say that that my team and I are really keen to continue our visits to hubs and to attend events, and it's really important to us to be able to do that. And I wanted to thank you for those who we have engaged with in visits and at events, and thank you in advance for having those engagements in the coming months. And I look forward to meeting more of you in person soon. And I'll end there.
Thank you, Stefano, and thank you, Richard. Right, Sam and Maria are going to come in soon and take us through the headlines of the funding agreement negotiation process. But before that, I wanted to give you a flavour, really, of the successful applications, particularly focusing on the governance arrangements and the partnerships. As you very well know, a music hub really has partnership at its heart. No matter how each of your hubs are constituted, embedding a strong governance and partnership structure that is really representative and can respond to need will ensure that all of the children and young people and the schools that you serve can access the offer across your whole hub area. Just over 2/3 of the new Hub Lead organisations are based within local government, and the remaining third are independent organisations. 15 hubs will be led by consortia, with an average of 3 or 4 organisations making up each consortium, and that includes the lead organisation. We're pleased to welcome some new organisations leading hubs into the portfolio. Liverpool City Region Combined Authority and the Octagon Theatre in Somerset will be leading a music hub for the first time, so welcome. And SEL Music Education has also been established to lead the South East London hub. Richard referenced the breadth of partnerships that we were pleased to see in applications, and there were approximately 1,000 different confirmed hub partners referenced across the 41 successful applications. And these were very broad and diverse and include arts and cultural organisations, including opera companies like Glyndebourne, orchestras like the Halle, BBC Concert Orchestra, Bristol Reggae Orchestra, and our national youth music organisations like National Youth Orchestra and Orchestras for All. There were also cathedrals, commercial music organisations, including record labels, community arts and music organisations like Girls Rock London and Spark Arts for Children, venues and festivals like Glastonbury, Womex, Alexandra Palace and the Curve Theatre in Leicester, visual arts galleries like Mima in Middlesbrough, and also quite a lot of organisations that support the music education sector, including those with a focus on disability, inclusion, early years and progression, health and wellbeing, and music technology, like Arts for Health, Be Well in Hampshire, and Technology in Music Education. There were also over 50 higher education partners, including universities and conservatoires in the applications. So I hope that gives you an idea of the wonderful breadth of partners that will be involved in hubs from September. We know that building and then sustaining partnerships takes time and commitment, and we really look forward to seeing how your partnerships develop and what the opportunities that your hub will be able to offer for your children and young people over time and what that will look like. You will know that we're continuing the search for Hub Lead organisations in London South West and South Yorkshire. The portal opened on the 25th of April and will be closing on the 6th of June. We're aiming to inform applicants of the outcome of their applications in July so that they can start from September just like you are. And we look forward again to understanding what those two partnerships are going to look like. Okay, so we're now going to talk about the funding agreement negotiation and transition to the new funding programme. I'm also opening the Q&A, so please do start to share your thoughts or your questions now, and we'll come to them after this next section. We know that you need to focus on the work and the complex conversations and the governance routes that you're going to need to navigate to ensure that your hub is ready to go from September. We also recognise that each of your hubs is in a very different place, and you'll be able to confirm your different plans or your approaches at different stages. So Sam and Maria are going to talk you through our requirements, really emphasising what you need to focus on to complete the funding agreement process, but also the flexibilities that are available to you to reflect where you are, each of you in your different contexts. So I'd like to introduce to the session Sam and Maria. They're going to talk us through the next section and then stay on for the Q&A, where Stefano will also rejoin and participate in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sam Martin, Senior Manager, Music Hubs at the Arts Council. I am a white female with shoulder-length brown hair in my late 30s, sitting in my home office in South Cambridgeshire. We've pulled together a high-level timeline, which one of my colleagues will shortly be putting onto the screen. Lovely, thank you. To reassure you, this timeline doesn't contain anything new. It captures the key dates of what is happening for both the Music Hub revenue and capital grants over the next couple of months. It also contains the remaining payment dates and requirements for the current 23-24 funding period, including the 23-24 annual survey dates. We can look to share this timeline with you all on our website too after today's event. And these dates can also be found in the quick reference guide, which was published and shared with you all last week. And we'll pop a link to where that's located on our website in the chat. So I'd like to talk to you all first about the revenue grant. You all received your conditional offer of funding on the 8th of April, and within this was a negotiation letter. This sets out what you need to do to meet your conditional offer and secure the final funding agreement. This is what we call funding agreement negotiation and will take place between April to June, with the deadline to submit the documents to meet the conditional offer on 28th of June. For the vast majority of you, this will involve reviewing and updating 4 things: your Music Hub development plan, partners table, budget within the financial information templates, and providing a draft diagram and terms of reference for your hub governance and management arrangements. If you applied as a consortium, then we'll also ask you to reconfirm your consortium members and provide a draft consortium agreement. How we've structured these requirements is there are a couple of things which are standard for everyone for each of the documents. And then for some of you, there may be some specific things we've asked for which reflect any areas for development or risks identified in your application. I'd like to emphasize here that we're primarily looking for updates. These can include anything important that might have changed since you submitted your application, as well as providing any further detail in response to specific feedback from our assessment. And this will be outlined in the table in your negotiation letter. We have only asked for the really critical things, and much of what is being requested is something that you could include in your Music Hub development plan, perhaps by providing an outline of intended plans and timescales, or it could be that you need to clarify the role of a partner within the partners table. These requirements have also been informed by the 2024-25 payment schedule and additional conditions. So you may also wish to shift some dates within your plans once you've looked at those. We are not looking for reams of information. This is about providing short updates to key information based on assessment feedback. This provides us and colleagues at the DFE with the assurance to be able to issue the final funding agreement. In terms of the 24-25 revenue grant requirements themselves, we published the key documents for these on 23rd of April, and we've popped a link to that in the chat for you as well. We shared these in their draft format so that you have cited them to inform your planning and to help with setting up your partnerships and governance structures. These documents are the additional conditions, payment condition schedule, and standard terms and conditions. These are all the core legal documents that will form the final revenue funding agreement. They do need to be read in full before you sign the funding agreement in July and August, but ahead of that, please do use the quick reference guide to help you navigate them. The additional conditions essentially set out the detailed funding requirements, and these are shaped around what is expected from your local plan for music education, also known as LPME. An updated LPME guidance document is in development, which will draw together all previous guidance documents such as needs analysis, inclusion, school engagement, all in one place. You don't need that for funding agreement negotiation, but we are aiming to share it with you towards the end of May to support your planning. A key thing to note for the 24-25 funding period is that it is very much a transition year for the Music Hub programme. We understand that, and we know that colleagues at the DFE understand that too. We are not expecting everything in place for September, quite the opposite. There will be 6 payments in the year, and we have staggered the different components of the LPME across these payments to give everyone a chance to get their operational structures in place first, before working on some of the more in-depth strategic planning and development for for your hub. The priority for September is ensuring continued delivery of activity on the ground. The payment schedule and section 1 of the additional conditions also cover what we can accept in terms of draft or outline versions of documents for the first couple of payments, so that you don't need to try and produce hub-wide versions of everything if there are acceptable plans or documents on a local authority level which contain what is needed. The September payment conditions are also intended to follow on from what you submit in June for your conditional offer, so you may find it helpful to consider them collectively. We know that working out your budget will be at the centre of it all, and please don't worry if your budget needs to change in places between June and September. That's fine and to be expected when we know that some of the detail is still being ironed out, particularly in relation to partnership arrangements and how the grant will be distributed. By end of June, we just want to see your latest thinking and planning, recognising that many things will still be a work in progress. What's key is being clear on that within your documents, such as your development plan and partners table and budget, so that we understand where you're at and where you may need further support. All Hub Lead organisations will have been allocated a relationship manager for this negotiation period, and we know they've all been in touch to book in your feedback conversation. Over 2/3 of these conversations have taken place so far, and the remaining ones will be happening shortly. Please make sure you've read the conditional offer, negotiation letter, and assessment of your application prior to your meeting to get the most out of it. This isn't the only contact from your relationship manager during this period, though. They are there to support you throughout. This could be an additional meeting involving other consortium members or partners. It could be reviewing draft documentation, whatever is most helpful for you during this time. Our relationship managers are regularly feeding back to us on how these conversations are going and sharing your questions. So please continue to share with them, as well as contacting us via the Music Hub's inbox. If you have any concerns about meeting your conditional offer or any of the payment conditions, then please do talk to your relationship manager about this. There are also our informal drop-ins coming up over the next couple of weeks. We've had a really good sign-up rate to these so far, but there are still plenty of spaces available, and we can look to schedule in more if there is enough interest. The sessions provide a space for you to talk to other Hub Lead organisations, as well as us in the Music Education National Team and colleagues from Musicmark. We'll help you to talk through and share how to meet the conditional offer and navigate things like partnership agreements, terms of reference, things like that, but also perhaps to think a little further ahead to September if that would be helpful for you. That's everything from me for now on the revenue grant, and I'll now pass over to Maria.
Hi everyone, I'm Maria Turley, and I'm also a Senior Manager for Music Education and for Children and Young People at the Arts Council. I am a white, middle-aged lady with dark but slightly greying now, unfortunately, hair, and I wear glasses. And I'm speaking to you today from my home office, which is in Lewisham in South East London. I'm going to talk to you specifically about the Capital Grant now. So in April, we published an essential information document and draft terms and conditions for the Capital Grant on our website to provide you all with more information about the scope, the structure and the requirements of the Capital Grant. As a reminder, HLOs will receive a conditional offer for the Capital Grant after their funding agreement for the Revenue Grant has been agreed. That means that you don't need to act immediately on the information that we've shared in the essential information document. We're making this available to help you to understand more about key dates and requirements, and also to support your planning as well. So a quick overview of what you can expect from us in the coming months. But please do also refer to the essential information document, and as Sam has also mentioned, the quick reference guide that we made available. We're expecting to issue conditional offers for the Capital Grant in July 2024, and you will have until the 30th of November 2024 to meet the conditions that are set out in the conditional offer letter. This includes sharing with us your plans to make purchases using the Capital Grant, in particular, how this aligns with your approach to needs analysis, your partnership arrangements, and your management and maintenance policy as well. We'll also ask you at that point to share information about current assets. Subject to meeting those conditions, we will then issue you with a funding agreement for the Capital Grant. Just to be clear, we don't expect to see detailed purchasing plans for the whole funding period at conditional offer stage. What we want to understand then is your approach and strategy, and we'll expect you to submit more detailed purchasing arrangements when you make payment requests. Once you have your funding agreement, 4 capital grant payments can be requested or drawn down by HLOs between September 2024 and August 2026. And just to note here that you can submit your first payment request anytime up until the 3rd of January 2025. Payments will be subject to a submission of detailed purchasing plans, as I've just noted, and a register of assets for the items that you have purchased using the capital grant as well. In July, alongside conditional offers, we're going to publish more information and tools about the capital grant. This will include templates for the purchasing plan and register for assets with some supporting information, as well as guidance around asset purchase and management agreements as well. And at that stage, we'll also publish a final version of the terms and conditions for the capital grant. We're continuing to explore how we can respond to the needs of HLOs during this period, and also respond to any specific challenges relating to the administration and distribution of the capital grant. We'll be testing some of the next set of templates and information with the sector over the coming weeks, and we'll provide further updates prior to the release of conditional funding offers in July. So please do look out for that. Finally, a quick note about the Department for Education's Musical Instruments, Equipment and Technology Framework, which Stefano has already mentioned. The framework is under development at the moment, and its use will be mandatory for all purchases made, except in circumstances where the items you require are not available through this route. As Stefano noted, more information about the framework, so how HLOs should use it, but also how suppliers can sign up for it, is on its way, and we'll be in touch with you about that in due course. In the meantime, however, please do encourage any suppliers or manufacturers you work with to engage with the development of the framework. The pre-market engagement stage is open on JAGA until the 30th of June. Just so I've said this out loud, however, JAGA calls this the SSQ stage, or the Supplier Selection Questionnaire, but it is pre-market engagement. Suppliers can register on JAGA, they can submit feedback, and they can also access the early market engagement slides there. If you head to the FAQs on our website about the capital grant, you'll find the links that you need there to be able to access that too. You might also want to direct any suppliers that you're working with to the essential information document as well, to help them to understand and respond to your needs and requirements too. And I think that's everything from me. So I'm going to pass back to Hannah.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Sam. Please do stay on because we're going to do the Q&A now. It's been a little bit quieter than I'd anticipated. Are you all hungry and ready for your lunch? But we do have some questions that have emerged. So I'm going to move to those now. First, I'd like to go to John Callister. John, somebody in my team's going to turn on your microphone, if you wouldn't mind coming on and asking your question about schools, and I'll ask Stefano to respond to the question once you've asked it.
Thanks, Hannah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So my question is, music organisations across England are hugely grateful for the continued investment from the DfE and are committed to and passionate about reaching as many children and schools as possible with quality provision and support. The ambition in the national plan should be commended, but many of our schools still view engagement with hubs, music development plans, and the model music curriculum as non-statutory. Despite this, in many regions, music hubs are engaging with over 90% of settings in some format. However, in many cases, continuing to increase this engagement is not practical with the resources we have available and without willingness from the school sector. We have discussed this before, but can I ask the DfE and ACE how more can be done nationally to hold schools to account, in addition to hubs, for the success of the National Plan for Music Education?
Thanks, John. That's a really good question, so I'll seek to answer it. So I mentioned in in my introduction that we'll soon be announcing some changes in relation to expectations on schools regarding the school development plans, and as part of that we'll be promoting the role of hubs in supporting schools. I can't say more than that for now, but I hope once you see you all see the detail of that, I hope that comes some way in addressing your point about how does one get schools that are unwilling or seem unable to engage to engage. The stats on this from our survey in March 2023 did suggest, as I said, sort of 75% of schools should have a music development plan. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll engage in hubs, of course, but I think that's an important starting point. We're also mindful that it does take time for music hub partners to engage with more schools and acknowledge that as part of either re-establishing or establishing contact and engagement schools, especially if they haven't engaged ever or recently, that can be challenging. I mean, one of the ambitions of having 43 newly established partnerships is about being able to scale existing good practice on school engagement across a wider area and share across partners how to do that well. And I had a really helpful presentation from the Kent Hub, Peter's team on this about how they were doing that. And I think that's core to thinking through and making real the strategic function in relation to schools. I completely appreciate the funding point as well. On funding and affordability, as set out in your successful bids, the applicant guidance sets out expectations that every school, every music hub rather, secures at least 50% of funding beyond the core grant by the end of the funding period, and many of the existing hubs certainly achieve well beyond that, but there's a high variation. And of course that securing additional funding comes through fundraising, but it also comes through charging and working out what one charges for and what one offers essentially as a loss leader free engagement is a decision that does need to be made by music hubs, lead organizations and their partners. But that's all key, of course, to maintaining the financial health of the music hub as set out in the strategic function around sustainability. So more on this to follow, John, and I hope you and other leaders of the New Hubs programme will be assured what we're pushing on this. On the statutory, non-statutory, that's often asked. I mean, the thing I would say to that is a lot of what we do in curriculum in the department, including expectations about engagement with, say, the English hubs and the maths hubs, which have been around a good long time, not as long as the music hubs, though. None of that is statutory, but we do still see high engagement on, for example, the model music curriculum. Our research suggests that we have sort of around 60% of schools engaging with that guidance, which I think provides a really useful starting point for those conversations. But I'll stop there.
Thanks, Stefano. And I'd add to that that the Arts Council's strategy is very clear in that we want to support children and young people's creativity and creative cultural lives where they live, where they go to school and where they spend their free time. And we're doing that in a number of ways. Obviously, we have our ArtsMark programme where we're advocating to support schools to embed creativity in schools. We also have a relationship with the National Governors Association and the training programme that we're offering to governors on culture through that relationship has been very well utilised. And we continue as well to advocate to government, and will do for the next government, whoever it is, about the importance of arts subjects in school. And the monitoring board for the national plan that Stefano referenced earlier has multiple partners on there that are working in schools, either individual schools or academy trusts, or work in networks. And we're doing a lot of work with them to try and get the message across and the support that schools need to deliver. You're all doing really marvellously in your work with schools, and we're just trying to think about what the strategic support around that we could build to help continue advocating for music in schools. Stefano, while I've got you, I've had an anonymous question here on TPS, Teachers Pension Scheme, which is the loss of the additional TPS grant funding is a blow to us. Can this decision be revisited?
Yeah, no, we're answering a lot of questions on this following the recent announcement of an increase in employer contributions for those who employ teachers on the Teachers Pension Scheme. So we have responded publicly on this, but I'll seek to summarise end to end the position. So as you all know, Arts Council England informed potential bidders in the middle of June as part of the application process that they were ending the continuation of the top-up grant to non-LA hubs as part of the revenue and the capital grant allocations, and we were going to continue solely with the revenue and capital grants going forward. So we'd sought in doing that to let all bidders know that the funding would be simplified back to the core revenue and the core and the new core capital grants. Indicative allocations for both revenue and capital were published for academic year 24-25 with the application guidance, and indeed then final allocations were subsequently published based on the latest pupil data. But we do recognise, even with those who responded to that fact and sort of sought to take steps to consider where they are not a local authority and they don't have duties to provide TPS to their staff, that there were a lot of concerns raised by the fact that there was the increase in TPS from April. So we have taken steps for the current programme to increase the existing grant from April to August, and that should all be with those who receive that top-up funding. We're also mindful that local authorities have received a one-year grant for financial year 24-25 for centrally employed staff, including music teachers that are part of the existing hub programmes, and noting LAs are required to offer TPS to their teaching staff as a matter of course, and that's the reason that funding was provided, as well as being provided to schools who are also required, state-funded schools which are also required to provide TPS. So we secured additional money from Treasury to provide that funding for the existing non-local authority music hub lead organisations until August 2024. So in addressing the question about, well, what about September onwards? What about the new programme? So we have planned to, and we've said publicly, that we're going to take steps to determine the level of employer liability for staff employed on the TPS, and intend to gather information on TPS from non-local authority music hub lead organisations and their partners, as well as, to be decided, but as well as local authority music hub lead organisations and their partners, in considering the scale of the pressure for September 2024 to March 2025, which essentially covers that remaining period that the department's already provided with money for to local authorities. So we will, once we've gathered that data from yourselves, and we'll set out details of that shortly. The question then remains, what about April 25 onwards? And in that regard, we need to consider too the department's overall approach to LA centrally employed teachers. The department hasn't said anything about April 2025 onwards for schools or LAs. So we want to be in lockstep with them. And the other thing to consider, of course, is that we can't preempt the outcome of the spending review, but we will give due consideration as to how this funding issue may be addressed in future, working in tandem with our local authority funding colleagues. So more to follow on this, on the taking steps to understand better the level of liability for those of you who are either a new hub lead organisation that is not a local authority, or a delivery partner as part of a new music hub partnership that isn't a local authority following.
Thank you.
A long answer, but I hope it covers the ground.
Yeah, thank you. And we had another one come in as you were talking about the perception of it feeling quite unfair that LA hubs are getting it and not the non-LA hubs, which I think you've covered in
Indeed, it's the statutory requirement to provide local authority employees who are teachers with the teacher pension scheme, and that's a requirement on local authorities as well as on schools and others, but not on charities or charity-based organisations. But we're still very mindful of the perception that that's an unfair approach. We're given a number of existing organisations do provide TPS to their staff as part of their terms and conditions.
Thank you. Right, Alison Brain, I wonder if I could bring you in to ask your question live, please. We're just going to turn on your mic.
Yep, that should be me unmuted now.
Yep, we can hear you, thank you.
Brilliant afternoon, everybody. So the announcement of these wider geographical areas has already enabled us to successfully grow and embed meaningful regional activity through the co-creation of our large-scale hybrid opportunities. And so through the sustainable programmes that we put in place, such as SENFest, VBS, etc., we've been able to engage with significant numbers of young people and extend that collective reach across our entire partnership. So my question here really is whether you see large-scale opportunities fitting in as an integral part of the overall vision for this new generation of music hubs, and then also whether there's an expectation that we'll continue to work with a wider hub network nationally.
Thank you, Alison. I'll give that a stab at answering. I think what we've been hoping, the Arts Council and the Department for Education, with this move to having these larger music hubs, is that we will make sure that there are still activities happening in local communities that meet the needs of those local children, young people and schools, and that it will look very different across the individual hub area, what the provision might look like depending on those needs and which delivery partners are working in different places. But also that there is this opportunity to work at a larger scale on events or opportunities for particular groups of children, young people, or with different partners that can work at different scales. And we've already seen hubs over the years doing lots of that kind of work, and we really do want to see much more of that. And I think some of the partners that I referenced earlier will be able to really support hub lead organisations to make sure that those kinds of opportunities are available. So I think I'm saying we want to see the small, really local, impactful opportunities as well as the large scale opportunities that will meet particular children's needs or offer those sort of opportunities that those young people will talk about for the rest of their lives that they never forget because of having those types of opportunities. Could you just remind me what the second part of your question was, please?
Yeah, it's just whether there is going to be an expectation that we'll continue to work with the wider network, so all of us together nationally.
Yeah. And that is an area that I would really love us to talk about as a new network. I think there's real potential with 43 hub lead organisations to get in a room, whether that's virtual or real, more often, and talk about where there are opportunities to learn from each other, to troubleshoot, and to explore how they might be able to do things collaboratively. So I would love to have that kind of conversation. It's a really exciting opportunity, and I'd encourage you and others to use the Music Hubs inbox to share any ideas that you've got on that. It really is something that I think we've got the opportunity now to think about doing more of.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thanks, Alison. Right, James Dickinson, can I bring you in now, please? And I'm going to ask Sam to answer this question.
Hi, everyone. My question is, I welcome the commitment to streamline processes wherever possible, and also that we're being tasked with being more strategic. But I wonder whether there could be more emphasis on being empowered to have a musical vision for our regions. And therefore, can the outcomes become more focused on musical quality and music success? But quality comes at a cost and at the expense of more catch-all targets, such as percentage of school engagement. But I'm interested in the response to the musical ambition of the new structure.
Thank you, James. It is what we all get out of bed for every day, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Sam.
Absolutely. And thank you, James. We definitely want you to feel empowered to have a musical vision for your region and to really put that at the heart of your local plans for music education as you're kind of drafting them and thinking about what is it that is most relevant and appropriate for the places that you serve. One of the things that you may have seen in the additional conditions is that, you know, as you know, in the national plan, there is this kind of ask of an impact framework. We'd like to develop kind of a program level impact framework with you all that then helps to inform what that looks like individually in your hub areas. And that's something that we'd like to develop with you all kind of from the start of the year and until kind of when we've asked for like a draft version of that in the summer next year. So that's certainly something where we'd like to look at making sure that those outcomes really work for everyone and really kind of thinking about kind of quality and those musical outcomes and what's actually happening in terms of the impact on children and young people in your areas. So that's definitely something that we really want to kind of develop and collaborate on with you all. The other thing I wanted to flag here was you may have seen that we're not asking for the first performance ratings until January next year, and we're not going to publish the new performance framework and probably until September, because we want to spend some of this time with all of our new hub lead organisations to shape that performance framework. We've already worked with quite a lot of our current hub leaders in kind of gathering the feedback and understanding what's working and what isn't working with that, and we'd really like to kind of consider how we could make that much more effective and embracing different ways of working with that, and thinking also about kind of use of technology and how you kind of consider and submit your rating. So that's also something that we kind of want to explore, and for us it links into kind of then thinking about wider impact as well. So lots of opportunities there, and something that we're really excited to work with you all on.
Thanks, Sam. Stefano, did you want to add anything in?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about the importance of vision, local vision and your local plans, and indeed quality. I mean, I think we have sought to express this clearly in the National Plan for Music Education, and if you don't think we have that, that's fine. But I think that there's two things for me. One is in the refresh plan of 2022, we sought to emphasize the importance of progression and the extent to which children and young people are supported to progress in their musical journey, and it's not only about doing as much as we can on first experiences in primary or wherever it is. So actually getting grip on ensuring children and young people engage, progress, learn, and continue to engage as their musical journey continues is really key to us. And that's really key to the Music Progression Fund as and when we announce it, which will be soon. And although that will only be in a number of localities, the national partner, who we wish to announce soon, will be working with music hubs as well as schools to really expand what good progression looks like from primary to secondary at least. And part of that progression strategy, which will be part of your plans because that was part of the application process, it also is about removing barriers to learning, especially around the challenges of income for families, and knowing that progressing in music does make demands on families with regard to time as well as with regard to their income. So having fair remissions policies in order to support barriers to learning such as income, as well as others such as special educational needs and distance, are all absolutely key to trying to make a reality of that in each and every local authority as well as wider music hub area.
Thank you. And thank you, James, for your question. I've got an anonymous question here, and Stefano, I think if you and I try and answer this one. It says, much of ACE's communication has been focused on the new Music Hub programme being able to expand provision. How can we expand what we're offering if our funding has been cut every year in cash terms or real terms for over a decade, and the broader funding climate is harder than ever? I think the first thing I would say is that I recognise that the financial climate is challenging. What we've tried to do is mirror the guidance for applicants in the additional conditions so that you're being asked to deliver what you expected to be asked to deliver rather than more than that. But we do always want to help and facilitate conversations and provide feedback to the DfE on the realities of delivering the programme and the financial context that you're operating in that's affecting that deliverability of the programme. More generally, the Arts Council is always making the case for additional investment across government for arts and culture, and we will continue to do so for the next spending review, whenever that is, and to the next government. And Dan asked a question around whether we'd been talking, whether you, Stefano, had been talking to Labour's team, which you can respond to. I'd just flag that we've been given permission to start having conversations with that team as well, and starting to support that advocacy for the importance of arts and culture, particularly for children and young people. But Stefano, what about you in terms of the financial context impacting on this?
Sure. So we have sought to, and indeed have sort of protected the existing funding. That certainly isn't the case in a number of other, what the department calls unprotected budgets, the protected budget being the core schools budget. That is language that's in the public domain. We, of course, I completely understand flat cash isn't inflation protected with regard to pay and non-pay matters. So as you might expect, I'll restate the fact that one of the expectations of Music Hub lead organisations is to secure more funding from other sources, including through fundraising. And it's great what Richard said about supporting improving fundraising, and one of the key ideas about having partners covering a wide areas, you can build that expertise with regards to fundraising. It does, though, involve charging, and I completely appreciate that there's some depth and breadth questions here, isn't there? How does one reach and engage with as many schools as possible, going beyond the current sort of stated 90%? What does a minimal engagement look like in terms of a needs assessment? And then once that needs assessment is undertaken and that engagement is undertaken as a minimal engagement, what is the range of provision that any hub partnership can reasonably provide for the funding that they have in terms of the amount of activity, and what can be reasonably charged for, while making remissions policies fair with regard to family income and other circumstances. So that is a difficult circle to square, but it can be done, and it is done in many services, but it does require choices. I'll completely acknowledge that about the sort of minimal engagement with every school, as well as what the offer is to those schools that wish to support their services, and then what can be offered to children, young people and their families outside of school settings, of course, because I know many hubs certainly make all that happen too. I can't speak to should there be a change of government, because it's beyond my pay grade. What I can do is say that I expect the fiscal position isn't going to improve readily, but we as civil servants do figure in the plans of any potential new government as we approach the general election, and we would figure into that the choices that need to be made about existing funding, and as part of the next spending review, we would, as a matter of course, consider inflationary pressures on all of our grants, and that's something we would do with the Music Hubs programme too.
Thank you. We have 2 minutes left, but I really want to squeeze in a question around capital. So I hope people can stay on for maybe an extra 2 minutes. But we do have a few, Maria, that I was hoping if you could answer as quick as possible, and then maybe we could provide some written answers as well. There was an anonymous question around if many of the hubs need to purchase instruments in September, does that mean they have to meet the conditions by the 1st of September rather than the 30th of November? That's the first one. I'm going to do rapid fire questions at you right now.
So the answer to that one is subject to meeting the conditions of the conditional offer, you can draw down your first payment from any point from the beginning of September. So yes, if you're ready to submit a payment request and to submit a detailed purchasing plan of that, you can draw down that payment from the 1st of September, yes.
Thank you. And Jane Cowell asked, she assumes they don't need to include instruments that they haven't purchased through the grant on the asset register return.
You're not required to. And what we, in terms of payment conditions attached to the funding agreement, we need to see in the register of assets items that have been purchased using the capital grant. However, we are supplying with you a template which you may find useful in terms of registering your whole stock. So if it's useful for you to use in that way, you're welcome to do that. We are building it in a way which means that we'll be able to differentiate between those two kinds of item.
Thank you. And finally, another anonymous question which says, Stefano mentioned that hubs may wish to become sellers of second-hand instruments. And the question is, given the need for environmental sustainability, does that mean that hubs could potentially use the capital grant to purchase used equipment from another hub if it meets their needs in the area?
As I understand it, and Maria, correct me if I'm wrong, there is scope within the framework agreement for hubs themselves to be on the supplier framework, and we are at least actively considering in relation to sales of used, previously used or pre-loved, as sometimes called, musical equipment. Is that right, Maria?
Yeah, that's what I would say as well. So yes, it may be possible. I'd refer you back to the fact that the supply framework is mandatory for purchases made using the capital grants. And what I would also do is refer to our terms and conditions as well, and just make sure you're reading those and what it means within that context. What I will do as well is I think we'll take this away, and it could be that we will draft an additional FAQ specifically about this point that we'll share with you.
Yeah, the question went on to ask about whether they could pay for repairs, etc. So if we could respond specifically to that in writing as well, please.
Yes, we can.
Right, okay, I'm afraid I'm going to have to draw the Q&A to a close as we've come to the end of our time together a minute ago. Thank you so much for all of your thoughtful questions and reflections. We do have lots of support available to you over the coming months. Please do sign up for any of the drop-in sessions that we've got available. They'll be really informal. They'll allow you to ask us anything that you want to help you navigate the next few months. If there's an area that you need support with that doesn't seem to be covered by one of our drop-ins, just let us know via the Music Hub's inbox and we'll put something in addition into the schedule. Of course, Music Mark is here to support you, and a representative from there will be at each of our drop-ins as well. I mentioned earlier when Alison asked her question about that it would be good to have some of your ideas on how you might work together. Another thing that I would really like your advice on and ideas on is how and who we should communicate with in your hub. I'm specifically thinking hub lead organisations, your consortium partners or key partners. I know every hub is going to look and operate quite differently. We want to make sure that we're able to build really strong, positive, trusting relationships with you. And so any ideas that you've got on who we should be communicating with and how, again, please do drop that in the Music Hub's inbox because it's something that we're pondering about at the moment. I'll now hand over to Richard, who's going to close our session today. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Hannah, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Sorry we've gone a little bit over the time, but I hope you found it useful to hear about all the things that we've been talking about today. Thanks very much to Stefano, to Hannah, to Sam and Maria for your contributions. That's been really, really helpful. We look forward to working with you all. And in particular from September as our new portfolio of music hubs. I hope that the work that you need to do to prepare for that goes smoothly. And as Hannah has said, we're here to help. So please do reach out if you have any questions. Personally, I'm planning to visit hubs regularly from the autumn. So I hope I get to meet at least some of you personally and experience the work that you're making happen in your hub areas. Thanks very much for coming, and goodbye.